Hey everyone, as we hit the noon hour here, we'll start shortly. We'll let people join us as they log on. We'll get started here shortly. All right, folks, thanks for joining us today. It is noon and we will be mindful of your time. Try to keep our webinar to 30 minutes. You are joining the Recycle Right at Work, Ohio's Market Development Grant. SWACO is a sponsor webinar. It's a mouthful there in the title, but we're glad you're here. Before we get started, there's a few things of housekeeping I'd want to go over with you. There will be a follow-up email with a survey after the webinar comes out about 5 or 6 hours later. There will be a recording of this, so you can watch this webinar at your on your own later, review it. Everyone is on mute, so if you do have a question, please put it in the question section, or feel free to also use the chat feature, and you can identify yourself or network with people in the meeting. This webinar format is designed to be basically a quick overview, kind of like a lunch and learn. Since it is lunchtime, it's 30 minutes long, so it's just brief. And if you find you have questions that are more in depth, we're happy to help you. Reach out. We'll make a schedule for a one-to-one with you. Some things to know about today's webinar. There is a handout in the handout section, and it's kind of circled here on the screen where to find it. You're welcome to download that. That handout is going to be a complete copy of this webinar. So if you feel like you've missed anything, you don't have to take a lot of notes. You will get a copy of this webinar. And one other thing, in case you do lose the webinar, there is that snowflake kind of icon. It appears like on the toolbar. You can always find the presentation by clicking on that icon. It'll bring it back to the front. You can rejoin the webinar that way. And if you're not familiar with SWACO, stands for the Solid Waste Authority of Central Ohio. We came into being in 1989 when the law was passed to create solid waste districts in Ohio. So there are 52 districts that service 88 counties. Franklin County is SWACO's jurisdiction. So we happen to be also the only jurisdiction that owns and operates the landfill here in Grove City. Our job is to divert materials from the landfill to help extend the life of the landfill. And we specifically focus on the business sector to achieve a goal of 75% diversion by 2032. The information being shared today is going to be applicable statewide. The market development grant's open to anybody within the state. You would just need to find a government entity in your area to sponsor your project, but we're focusing on Franklin County today. And a few introductions too here. I'm Sheila Davis, your webinar host. With me on our webinar today, Sean Collins. He'll be helping to manage our questions section. In case you have questions, put it in there. Sean is our newest member of the team, and together we work on the business programs, and Sean is taking over the multifamily market as well. So if you have a property that is a multifamily space, and we can help you bring recycling to your community too. So what we're here for today is the Ohio EPA's Market Development Grant. It's the topic we're going to talk about. I invited representatives from the Ohio EPA to share about the grant. And once they're through with their presentation, I will explain how SWACO can support your Franklin County business to apply for this competitive grant. And with that, I will turn it over to our EPA team.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Sheila. So my name is Travis Limbert. I'm the third contact there at the bottom. And I'll be kind of kicking over this first half of our presentation today. So we can go ahead and get next slide. All right, so like Sheila said, we're going to go over a little bit about the overall program, but we're really going to focus on the market development grant for today's session. So next slide. So here's just a brief snapshot of the things we're going to cover. Next slide, please. All right, so the grant program history. So just kind of a quick who we are, where we've been. So the program started out of the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, so ODNR. For those who are familiar with that, back in 1981. So the program has been around for over 40 years. In 2012, that program with some of the staff moved over to Ohio EPA and has been in our agency ever since. The funding structure of the program has changed over the years, but currently we are funded by C&DD, so construction, demolition, debris. Those have disposal fees when those are landfilled. Part of those fees get funded to us. And then when you dispose of scrap tires, there's also a fee on that for that proper disposal. And a portion of that fee also goes to our grant program. So that is how the funding is done. It's not done through general taxes. It is done through these disposal fees. And then starting with our 2024 cycle, which was last year's cycle, we were able to double the amount of funding that we have allocated for the program. So for many, many years, we were doing about $4 million. And starting last cycle, we are now up to $8 million. So for the 2025 cycle that's about to begin next couple of months, we are expecting to be funding at that same level at that $8 million. Next slide, please. So yeah, so we have 5 grant types that are under the umbrella of what we call the Recycle Ohio Grant Program. All 5 of these grants are administered at the same time. A lot of the terms and stipulations are similar or shared among these 5 grant types. But today we're going to focus on that third, that market development one, but wanted to let everyone know here that there are other grant offerings under our program. But lots of different eligible applicants based on what kind of grants you're going for. But today we're going to be focusing on that bottom one, the businesses with a local government sponsor like SWACO. All right, so next slide, please. Okay, so market development grant. What is that? What do we mean by this? So this grant is specifically targeted for private businesses located and registered within Ohio. So what that means is you have to be in Ohio, have a location in Ohio, and operate have some sort of business here. So it could be a multi-state business, but you do have to have a footprint and be doing something that is registered in Ohio and impacts Ohioans. The type of projects we're looking for, ones that increase or expand recycling processing. So it could be helping keeping something out of landfill, so you're able to now recycle it and so it gets reused into something, help innovate a process, so now something on your assembly line, instead of getting landfilled, and you're now able to reintroduce that back into your manufacturing. Lots of kind of different ways you can, for that material, whether it be also remanufacturing something, so it makes it more efficient. So lots of different options. But one caveat is we do require you to have a government sponsor. We call those an agency of the state, municipality, county, township, solid waste management district. So a perfect example for those of you who are here, SWACO is the one hosting this. They have been a government sponsor for us many times in the past. They'd be the perfect sponsor for you. So if you are interested in this, please get in touch with them and they'd be able to help you out with this application. So of the funding, 100% of the grant funds are held until after the project is complete. So what that means is, let's say you come to us for $100,000, you will not see a single cent of that $100,000 until your project is purchased, installed, paid, and your invoices are complete and turned over to Ohio EPA. Once we verify that you have done the project under the grant terms, followed the grant timeline, did what you said you're going to do, bought what you said you're going to buy, those things are up and running. Once all that's approved, then we'll cut the check for whatever that was spent and that was approved. That money then would go to your sponsor. So in this case, it would go over to SWACO, and then they would pass it over to you. So we always want to highlight this for our businesses, that this is more of a reimbursement type of funds. So do not expect that you come to us and say, hey, I need $100,000, that we will then cut you a check for that. It is something that is given to you after your project is complete and done. So as you are looking to see if this fits for you, if there's a project that you might be eligible from us, please keep in mind that there will be that lag in funding. And so if that is going to impact your viability for the project, please keep that in mind as you work on your readiness and see if this is a project that would work for you. Next slide, please. So there's also a match component to this grant. So the funding available is up to $200,000. And 100% cash match means so every dollar that you ask for from Ohio EPA, we ask that your business also match with a dollar. So another way to say that is if you ask $200,000 for a piece of equipment from Ohio EPA, we are expecting that business to also match $200,000 in the purchase of that equipment. So what that would mean is, let's say your equipment is a $400,000 piece of equipment, we'll pay half, you pay half. Like I mentioned on the previous slide, because it's more of a reimbursement grant, you would be expected then to buy that $400,000 piece of equipment, get it installed, get it up and running, come to us. Once everything's approved and finalized, we would then cut you that check for that $200,000 over to your sponsor, and then they would turn that over to you. So once again, funding is after it is done in a reimbursement fashion, and it does require a dollar-to-dollar cash match up to that maximum of $200,000. If your project is less, we do ask you to come in for just what you need. So don't just come in for money just because the money's there. If your project is only a $100,000 project, ask for that. Don't ask for the max just because it's there. Ask for what you need. The grant period is 24 months. So we'll have some dates here to kind of lace out when it starts, but it starts April 1st. So next cycle will be April 1st, 2025. That will give you until March 30th of 2027 to complete the project. So with that being the grant period of 2 years, that's a significant amount of time, but it does go quick. But that also means you have to do the entire project within those grant parameters. So don't purchase stuff in March of 2025. Don't purchase stuff in September of 2027. Like, we need you to be having everything invoiced and completed and done in the scope of that 2-year grant period. No outstanding financial or environmental compliance issues. We're just basically looking that you are in good standing with the state of Ohio, with Ohio EPA. So it makes sense, but sometimes people have questions about it. If you have a bunch of violations with us, we are not allowed as the state to then give you a bunch of money if you're not in compliance with us. We have to be good stewards of state money, and we have to make sure that the people we are awarding funds to are also in good environmental and financial compliance with the state. Your project location must be secured when awarded. This is something we started pushing a couple years ago. We would have people come to us and say, well, we're thinking about doing it here, or we're working on this, that, and then time would go by and the project would fall apart because the land increased, or it was a lease and the lease didn't get renewed, or this or that. And we've had a lot of really good projects not come to fruition because project locations were not secure at the time of award. So that is now a requirement. So if you are going to be doing it on a new property, you need to have that property at the time of the grant award. If that's still up in the air, that will most likely mean you will not get awarded. So please make sure you have all that secured and ready by the time you come and request a grant. If you are awarded, we do not do timeline extensions or additional grant funds. So let's say if you come and ask us for $100,000, $200,000 project, you want 100 from us, 100 from yourself. Come and find out 8 months later, oh, the price of that machinery is tripled. I now need an extra $100,000. Unfortunately, we cannot increase that amount. We basically, what you request from us, what we approve, is what our hands are tied, and that is what we are allowed to give you. Same thing in timeline extensions, 2 years. Like I said, can go quick, but it is a significant amount of time. So as you're looking at your project development and your timelines, keep that in mind that if you do need to get some sort of machinery fabricated from Europe, that's happened in the past, make sure that that fabrication, that ship time across the ocean, getting it over here to Ohio, all that can be done within that 2-year cycle. And then lastly with this, we just ask that you do not replace operation budget with grant funds. We know things are tough right now for some industries, so we don't expect you to say, oh man, my budget just got cut by $200,000. I'm going to come to EPA and just kind of make myself whole by getting the grant dollars to fill that budget. That's not really what it's there for. It's not there for staff. So please make sure that this is kind of for a piece of equipment and not for replacing your budget. Next slide, please. So like I kind of alluded to, this grant is really for the purchasing of equipment. So balers, shredders, extruders, eddy currents, lots of different options. Also includes site improvements directly related to that. So if you need to put down a concrete footer, if you need to build a structure for it that is, like, if it's outside, you just need something that covers it, electrical work, plumbing, basic things that are related to the specific project and piece of equipment. We're not looking to actually build you a barn or anything like that. This has to be something that is related to this piece of machinery, which also can include tools and supplies and also personal service contracts. So we're not looking to have your in-house maintenance folks, handyman, whoever it may be, someone on staff. We won't pay for them to do the electrical work because that is your staff person. You already have them on salary. But if you need to have someone come from the outside, if you need to have contractors come in to lay that footer, to do the piping, to do the electrical work, that is eligible under the grant expense because that is a new budget line item that you're incurring as part of this project. Next slide, please. So these are things that I kind of allude to already that we wanted just to lay out the unallowable costs. So basically things if we don't say you're allowed to do it, kind of just catch all. But once again, salaries, benefits, administrative costs, not covered on that. We're not going to pay for a grant writer to help write for this grant for you. We're not paying for your staff's time to write the grant or staff's time to administer the grant. Equipment and rental, this is for a purchase type thing, so rentals are not allowed. Any sort of like marketing, food, and land acquisition, that stuff, it's not eligible. State requirements, we can't do that. And then non-reimbursement, like I said, in kind, we're looking for that, like I said, cash match, that $1 to $1. So staff time, other donations can't really count as for our match. Can't replace your budget. Doesn't really do R&D and D. Hazardous waste, it's kind of a blanket no. There's been some exceptions in the past, like a battery recycler. If they're like, we're basically just not getting into chemical recycling, but if there are some things like batteries or things like that that feel like on the fence, reach out, just we can talk to you about that. But usually most hazardous waste are not eligible under the project either. Next slide, please. So there are 4 categories under this market development grant that are eligible for you to apply for. So anything related to construction, demolition, debris, or overall just general recycling equipment, like that's what I've been mentioning there. Anything related to your MRFs or material recovery facilities, recycling centers, like that. And then the last one is a new category for this cycle. So organics has always been eligible under our recycling equipment category, but this cycle we decided to break it out, kind of highlight and kind of beef it up a little bit about making it its own category. So this is kind of for anything that's about the reuse or collection or recycling of organic material. So this covers your in vessels, but by this expansion also includes things like food rescue. That's kind of like new under this category. But anything that is organic related, compost related, food rescue related is now eligible under this new category. And then here we've also included a template of the application that just kind of gives you a quick snapshot of what to expect when you would apply. And then next slide, this is my last slide. So we do ask that there is some business financial documentation that is included as part of your application. So we're not really looking for startups. We're not looking for brand new companies. We're looking for companies that have been around for at least 3 to 5 years. That way we just know that you've been around. This isn't something just brand new, that you've just a little established, that just kind of helps make the chance of the project going forward a little bit stronger. And so these are just kind of the terms of things that we're looking for as part of your application. And those must be submitted at least within a week after the grant period closes, that first week in December. So here's just kind of for information on what that looks like. And then when you apply, this information will be included there as well. We'll go to the next slide, and I would be happy to turn it over to Marie Barnett.
Thank you, Travis. Next, we will go over the grant funding criteria. The eligible applications are based on the following qualifications. Ohio EPA grant funds available. What does that mean? That means, do we have money available to give out? And we do. Each year, as Travis mentioned earlier, we used to give out around 4.5. And about 2 years ago, we were given 8 million. So we have a nice fund that we like to give out, to award. And we're thankful that we're going to do it again in 2025. You must have eligible product qualifications. What that means is what you're asking for, is it eligible under this program? That you have no outstanding financial or compliance issues. You're consistent with the strategic goals of the local and state solid waste management plans. Do you have a financial need? Do you have a positive regional or statewide economic and environmental impact? And does your project have the potential to evolve into a permanent service or program without future agency funding? Next slide, please. The grant timeline opens the first Monday of October, which is October 6th. That will be here before we know it. We have a grant review deadline of November 22nd. And what that is that means we have a draft application. You go into the system, you put all the information in, and then when you get to the bottom or to the end of it, it'll say, do you want to submit a draft application? And you can, but we'll only accept those up to November 22nd. And people say, well, why would you want to do that? Well, what we do is we really take a look at your project to make sure everything you put in there is eligible. And the big one we find a lot is that the project start date is April 1st. If you put things in there that begin in March, that would make your project ineligible, and then you wouldn't be considered for funding. So what we hope you'll do is you'll take advantage of this draft deadline, which is November 22nd. Get that to us so we can take a look at it and kind of help you with your application. If we see some areas where there were some questions asked and we didn't feel that you answered them as thoroughly as you could have, we try to give you some comments and say, hey, maybe if you add this, or maybe if you talk a little bit more here or there, that might enhance your application. The application closes on the first Friday in December, which is December 6th. Grant announcements, if awarded, are generally made around March 15th of 2025. And again, you can start, the grant starts April 1st of 2025. So let's say if you were asking for us to purchase a baler and you purchased it in March, that would not be eligible because you purchased it prior to April 1. So if it's a project that you'd like to do, you have to hold off until you found out if you were awarded and the April 1st start date. Generally, grants are 2-year. The market development grants, which is the one we're focusing on today, is a 2-year grant period, which means the grant would be in effect from April 1st of 2025 until March 30th of 2027. Next slide, please. And just to give you a little idea, back in 2024, the grant cycle highlighted. We received we funded 77 projects in the community and litter, 59 resource reduction, market development 12, academic 7, and the scrap tire 4. So we funded a total of 159 grants for $7.5 million. Next slide, please. And we talked a little bit about the application draft review. That's what was due November 22nd. You download a draft of the PDF on your online grant portal, and you submit the draft to the recycle@epa.ohio.gov. Now, what I will tell you is that we try to do a good, thorough job. Our unit takes a look at your application and goes through it. The longer you wait till November 22nd, the more we get. I believe we got 82% of the applications on that last day. So we have to build in some time to get through those. So the quicker you get it to us, the quicker we can get you some answers. And that way you can get in there and get the application submitted. The ROG staff reviews the application and we provide feedback. The draft reviews do not guarantee funding. In other words, just because we looked at it and said, hey, we think you should add this or add that, those are simply comments and you don't have to take those. But we do work very closely with the technical review team, and we know what kind of things they ask for and have looked for in the past. So we hope that this is very helpful. If feedback is incorporated, usually impacts your final score. Next slide, please. Application scoring. Grants are distributed to internal grant reviewers. There are usually 3 reviewers per team. Scores are averaged and ranked. Like I talked about before, there's different sections throughout the application, and each section is scored accordingly, given so many points, and then the applicant receives so many points for that section. No point threshold. Applications are not ranked comparatively. There are compliance checks. We make sure that you're in good environmental standings and make sure that you're in good standings with the state of Ohio. We also recommend our recommendations to the director who makes the final decisions. And we do make a recommendation to say, as we've looked at the scores, this is how everybody fared out, and these are the ones that we recommend. But this is definitely our director's discretion. We also ask that if you purchase a piece of equipment, as you can see here, this is the EPA logo, and we ask that you mark that piece of equipment that it was funded in an acknowledgement line that says it was funded or partially funded by the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency. And then we have also listed the contact person where you can get the artwork contact when you get to that point and you need this information. Now you might say, why do we need this on here? Well, the story goes historically, a long time ago, somebody funded a project. We had a big ribbon cutting ceremony and they didn't give EPA any acknowledgement of the funding. So we said, hey, you know what, from now on, we're not gonna let that happen again. You know, we're giving money, we're awarding grants. So let's make sure that we get that acknowledgement. And we also like to highlight some projects on social media. So we like to have our name on there as well. Next slide, please. And then lastly, we have that slide again, who you can contact. Again, my name is Marie Barnett. I am the grants administrator and my contact information is there. You also heard today from Travis Limberg. His contact information is there. And we also have Carrie Willard, who you could also contact. So there's 3 really good contacts. If you should have any questions outside of your government sponsor, as Travis and Sheila talked about a little bit before, and you know, we're happy to help you. We're happy to sit down and have a call. Now, the closer we get to the application deadline, we do get really, really busy. So, you know, if you have some questions, now is the time. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Marie. Okay, the next section is going to be on the SWACO as a pass-through sponsor and what this means for us to be a pass-through sponsor. We have some basic requirements that we ask. We ask that we meet with you at your place of business to review the application process. We want to understand your project. We want to learn more about what you do and how you do it and how this project will increase your diversion of whatever the material is. Sean likes to remind me that we are 3 for 3 in the application process, so we're pretty good at understanding what kind of questions are on that application and how to best answer them so that you are in the best chances of winning the award. We also require that your business sign what we call a clawback agreement. So since the Ohio EPA requires a chargeback if a business fails within the 3-year period, SWACO also requires a document to be signed that addresses this requirement and protects SWACO as the pass-through sponsor. And finally, if you're awarded, then we will set up what we call check-in meetings during the project implementation process just to make sure you're on track, that you're going to complete by the deadline, and also help you not spend the funds before the official April 1st start date. So we look forward to working with you, and send us an email if you're interested in sharing your project with us. We do have a few minutes left for questions, and I don't know, Sean, do we have any questions?
Thanks, Sheila. Yeah, we have a few here. One is kind of related. I think these are for our EPA team members. When do you get paid and how fast can you get paid for it? And can you remind me how long we have to implement the project once awarded?
Sure, I'll take that one. Generally, as Travis kind of mentioned in his presentation, the best way to look at it is like a rebate. The company, the Ohio business, if awarded, if it's a baler that you're requesting, you would go purchase the baler. If that's all you're getting, once you've purchased that baler and you put the signage on it, you have all your receipts and proof of payments, and the proof of payment shows, hey, this is the invoice and this is how we paid for it. You submit that through a closeout report, you send it in, we check it, we verify it, we make sure you're in compliance, that you don't have any outstanding issues or any NOVs or any of those kinds of things. And then once everything is kosher, we send the check out. It goes to your sponsor, but it's 100% at the end of the application. All market development grants are for 2 years. So you would start April 1st of 2025 and you would run through March 30th of 2027. Again, that can be closed out anytime that your project is complete. Anytime in that 2-year period, you can close it out. And generally it takes 2 to 3 weeks. Once we've received the final report, we close it out, make sure it's processed, we close it out, make sure everything's kosher. If it is, then we send the check out. And that generally takes 2 to 3 weeks after that last final reporting information is submitted.
Thanks. I think because it has to come through SWACO's accounting features, we usually need about 2 weeks to reprocess it and pass it along. So let's just say it's a 30-day from the time that you get everything done. 30 days is probably a good amount to receive the funds from us. We are just about out of time here. It is 12:30. Appreciate you all for being on the call today. We also always invite you to stay connected on our social media. Follow us here, and I see that that's the old Twitter sign. It's now X, but we're on Instagram, Facebook as well. I'm sure the Ohio EPA has their own social media channels. You should certainly follow them as well.
And if I could just add, Sheila, before we hang up, if you had any
Sure.
questions, I know we didn't get to many of the questions that might have been asked. Please, you can reach out directly to myself or Travis or to Sheila and Sean if you have any questions, and we will get you that information.
Great, thank you. Appreciate everyone's time today and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.